We are to the third and final component of our Unit 2 assignment, which is the usability report. So let's take a look really quickly just at what the purpose of this is, the main components, and I'll kind of go into each of the components in a little bit more depth, just to be sure that as you draft your rough drafts, and start going into final revisions, that you know exactly what you need and how you want to approach this. Remember, there are also student samples for this, so you can go in and check those student samples, which you will be doing, and how my memo stacks up. So first of all, let's go through the description. In this final part of assignment 2, you're going to write the formal lab report on the findings of your usability test. So basically this comes after you've done your test. Hopefully you have done that, or you plan on doing it very soon. So keep in mind that even though this is a formal lab report, you still need to do to make it scannable. You need to have that dual stream scannability. That means you're going to keep using your headings, your subheadings. You're going to be using bulleted list where necessary. Remember, you will have more block text. You'll have it in more paragraph form, but you also want to make it scannable so your client can quickly find certain pieces of information. Also remember that you are continuing to write to your client as an audience, so keep your tone appropriate for speaking to the audience or the website owner. You also want to explain the why behind your processes and discussions. So remember, you've told them about usability tests in your last two, 2.1 and 2.3. The protocol memo kind of describes it in depth, but you want to keep kind of explaining the why to reiterate, why you've done what you've done and what they show you. You also want to directly show how the results of your test will benefit your client. Remember, it's all about how it's going to make their website better for the user and bring them more business, bring them more students, bring them it will benefit their organization or company. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown of the actual components of this. So you've got your abstract, your introduction, a section for procedure, for results, for discussions, and for conclusions. So you need to be sure that your final lab report has all of these in them, and let's take a look at what each of these are. So the abstract, you're probably familiar with these. It's just going to be a brief paragraph telling your client what this report is, what the test performed was, and some key takeaways. The abstract should serve the purpose of summarizing the lab report takeaways and also informing the client on why you're giving them this report. So you want to, in a succinct, 4 to 5 sentences, explain what happened and also why you're giving it to them, right? You're always explaining how and why throughout this. For your introduction, you want to explain the general process you used. What is usability testing? Why are you doing it? Who is the key audience, right? So who are those people that you have in mind, the people that the website's targeting? Who are your subjects? So who did you use in the usability test? You want to show how that reflects that key audience. What are the predictions you made in assignment 2.1 on poor design? Basically, you're going to give a brief summary of 2.1. So you might include phrases like, as discussed in our memo from February 10th, we plan to da-da-da-da-da. So you want to keep in mind that like all of these assignments, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, all link together. And you're kind of establishing rapport with the client and reminding them what you've done. So you can refer back to those memos as you go. And then again, right, remind the client of what you've already done together. And then you're going to walk a careful balance of explaining theories without treating them like they're an idiot. Remember, whenever you're working for a client, you are the expert in whatever's going on, but they're your client. So you want to explain to them what you're doing, why you're doing it, but you don't want to talk to them as if they're children. So keep that balance in mind as you move through the memo. This is also something to where you don't want to insult the website, like in a really direct way, because they may be the designers or, they okayed it. So keep that in mind also. All right, procedure section. So here you're just going to explain the specific procedures, and this is basically from 2.2 and how they played out in actuality. So here you're going to just explain what actually happened in the usability test. You want to demonstrate that, this would happen again and again and again, in case your client wants to repeat the test with a larger sample size. So how you'll do this, you're going to give the details on how you ran the experiment in past tense. Remember, this happened in the past, so keep your verb tense past tense. You want to kind of explain what your protocol was. You need to include the scenarios again and give a brief description of why you use them. And be sure that you include like how long the experiment lasted, how long it took them to do each thing, to demonstrate like timestamps. So basically, take what you did and explain it to them, but also like pull in your scenarios and things like that. So to recall, right? You don't want them to have to go back to the old protocol memo to figure out what was happening. So give them those things and then tell them how it actually played out. So then in results, you're going to kind of take away key block quotes from the test that you did and give an image of the website that illustrates what the quote is specifically talking about. So the results is when you're kind of saying, this is where we had problems, this is what actually happened. And when you're doing your usability test, you need to take notes on what was said so you can kind of demonstrate. This is why you use the think aloud, so you can get the verbal responses, and you need to include those verbal responses as well as a screenshot to kind of demonstrate what the participant is looking at as they're going. And then be sure to kind of include what the subject stated about the specific part of the site that you're referencing. And then in the results, you want to describe 3 big fixes and 3 smaller fixes. So 3 major problems you see that need fixing right now, and then 3 minor problems that would help but aren't as kind of critical as the 3 major ones that are causing so many problems for the usability of the website. And then finally, discussions. So you explain what your results mean. What were the most common errors you saw? How do these errors differ from or corroborate the predictions in your introduction? Which problem, and this is what's really important, what should you tackle first, right? Give them a plan of action. So tell them so this is what this means. We first need to do this. You need to explain how the solution is going to benefit the company. So why they also need to tackle that first. And how it will directly impact user experience and especially profitability. And then what are some possible solutions? So here is where I want you to use Krug's tweak methods from chapter 11. So for each 3 major problems that you're going to call out, I want you to give a quick fix, so that tweak, and then a long-term fix. So for each one, a tweak, so something that can be implemented immediately. It's not going to be the big, cure-all, but it's going to make it better and more user-centered, and it can be done quickly. But then suggest a long-term fix. So this is going to take a little bit more time, but it's going to make it much, much better. And then you can also provide an example solution from the competitor site for each problem. So, you gave them that competitor site that does things well. This is another place where you can refer back to the work that you've done so far to kind of demonstrate what this will look like in real life. And then finally, your conclusions. You're just going to summarize your suggestions for the company moving on. What are the things that to fix first? What's going to happen next? Do you recommend the company do more usability testing? Why or why not? What issues, right? So what do you do going forward if there are more usability tests? And then always refer back to that idea of profitability. So how was this test? How was it directly benefited the company? Why was it worth it? If you are suggesting to do it more, why should they spend more money and more time doing yet another test? So again, just keep it real reader-centered, right? You're talking to the website owner who is the company owner, and so you want to always keep that in mind as you go. So that is basically what your final assignment is composed of. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me or drop by office hours. And this will be due, unless you take your extension, just the Sunday before you go into the week of spring break.